For this reason, in the game, black didn't want to play e takes d and to choose to play this difficult position, but instead of this, black played a very tricky move. He castled on the short side, and now the point being behind the short castle is that now black is protecting indirectly the pawn on e5, and it will be not a good idea for that. It was what Marco thought in the game. It would be not a good idea for white to take on c6 and afterwards to play d takes e and knight takes e5. So let's see what is the point of short castle. In the game, Tarrasch actually took the knight. Bishop takes c6. Bishop takes c6 was played, and now white simply took the pawn on e5 with d takes e. Well, black recaptured, and now it seems to be clear why white cannot actually take on e5. Well, in case white takes on e5 with a knight, then black has the chance to exchange the queens with a tempo. Queen takes d1 in between move, and now white can take either the knight or the rook, but in both cases, after rook takes d1 or knight takes d1, black has the opportunity to take on e4 and then to equalize the game completely. So I think that in this case, black has no problems and very easy to play position. Rook a to d8 and rook f to e8 just centralize the rook, and all black will be staying very well here. So it seems that white should firstly, before to take on e5, exchange the queens. Let's say queen takes d8, but here black has the chance to take with two rooks, and with either of these taking, black has the indirect protection of the pawn on e5. So let's see, rook f takes d8 can be played, and now when white takes the pawn on e5, black has the chance to take on e4 with his bishop. And the problem now is that when white takes on e4 with his knight, after black simply recaptures, knight takes e4, white has the chance to take on e4 with the rook, since black has the mating threat of rook to d1, and when white plays rook e1, rook takes e1 will be with a mate. So because of that, a very tricky mating threat of rook to d1, it is really not a good idea for white to take the knight on e4. And after that, black is feeling very well in this position. He can actually put the knight on c5. After this, he can put the bishop on f6 or play g6, and then to transfer the bishop on the long a1 h8 diagonal with a very good position. Actually, black has no problems, and I can say that this position seems to be quite well for black if black plays next move knight c5. But here is what Tarrasch fought in the game, a very tricky line here for white. Tarrasch actually has considered the idea of knight to d3. And now what is doing white? Well, white already hits the knight on e4 and creates actually one more threat to the bishop on e7. So black has no way to retreat somewhere with the knight, since white will simply take the bishop on e7 and to win a piece. So black is forced actually to protect it with some move like f5, but then white can simply respond with f3, attacking the knight on e4. And if this knight retreats, then white will simply take on e7. So in case black plays move like bishop c5 with a check, then white can simply retreat with the king on f1, creating a double threat on the knight on e4 and bishop at c5. So it's not a good idea to play this position. And actually, that's why bishop takes e4 will be impossible in this case. So Marco saw this in the game, and he calculated the variations. He decided to take with the other rook, and he prepared actually some very tricky lines in case white take on e5, and let's see what happened in the game. White played knight takes e5 here, and black captured on e4 with his bishop. Well, if knight takes e4, white can simply play knight takes c6, and now there is a threat of knight takes e4, so black has to take on c3, but then white can simply give an in-between check with the move knight takes e7, and when black's king goes on h8, white can simply do b takes c3, winning 2 pieces. So it is not a good idea for white to do knight takes e4, but instead of this move, black can play bishop takes e4 here, what actually Marco chose in the game. Bishop takes e4, and now knight takes e4, knight takes e4, and Tarrasch played knight to d3 with the same idea to attack black's knight on e4, and together with that the bishop on e7 is under attack. So what should black do? Well, f5 is forced actually to defend this knight directly, and when white plays f3, here it is what actually Marco prepared after f3. Black played in here bishop to c5 with a check, and now if white's king goes on f1 as it was in the past case, then there is a difference that now one of black's rooks is staying on the f file, so black has the opportunity to just retreat the bishop on b6, and now in case white takes on e4, then black has the option to take to recapture the pawn f takes e4, and now this move is with a check on the white's king, and together with that the knight on d4 on d3 is under attack. So when white plays knight to f4, black is doing very strong move pawn to e3, attacking the knight on f4, and now if white simply chooses to take on e3 with the bishop, black can simply exchange the bishops, and now there is no bishop on c1 which can protect the knight on f4, so black can simply take the knight with knight takes f4 and actually completely equalize the game. So in case white protects actually the knight with pawn to g3, black has other move to play g5, and again black is taking back the knight and getting at least an equal position. So what should white do? Well, after bishop to c5 with a check, white can choose to go back to h1 with the idea not to stay on the f file, but then black will get a chance to play knight to f2 with a check, and now after knight takes f2, this is a tempo move, knight takes f2 and bishop takes f2, black has no problems in this position, and this is I can say after rook f1, bishop d4, even better for black. So it seems that black is doing okay after bishop to c5, but Tarrasch actually calculated this variation to the very end, and he managed to found a very interesting idea in this position. He actually in the game played knight takes c5, and now after black recaptures the knight with knight takes c5, white has the opportunity to go bishop to g5, hitting black's rook on d8 and creating very strong threat. Well, the threat is if now black simply moves out the rook from the position on d8, white can play bishop to e7, and white is actually doing double threat on the rook on f8 and knight on c5. So black is losing material. If not the knight, black will has to lose exchange here. So after bishop g5, is there any way for black to protect the knight and at least not to lose so much material? Well, let's try rook to d5, but then bishop to e7 is possible, again hitting the rook on f8, and when black plays some move like rook e8, already the knight on c5 is protected, but the rook on d5 which protects this is not very well placed, and white has the chance to play c4, hitting black's rook on d5, and together with this, the knight on c5 is under attack. So when black simply removes the rook from the position on d5, white can take the knight on c5 and get really very good and winning position after this with a piece up. So rook d5 doesn't help, and in the game Marco chose to play rook to e8, rook d to e8, but after bishop to e7 he simply resigned because at least black is losing an exchange, and after rook takes e7 or rook takes e7, rook takes e7, the position which arises after this is very good for white, and he's putting the dream of the rooks actually on the 7th rank, and he's preparing probably next move to play rook a to d1 and to go the knight to go b4 and actually kick the knight from the position on c5 and play and put the another rook to 7th rank. So in the current case, this is totally lost position for black. And if black decides to remove the knight with some move like knight to a4 after bishop takes f8, king takes f8 will be not a good idea because white will simply exchange the rooks, and after this it will be easily winning position for white. After rook takes e8, king takes e8, and in case black chooses to take on f8 with the rook, white can simply again put the knight on the 7th rank with a simply winning position. So it was a very interesting trap promoted by one of the greatest chess masters of 20th century, Siegbert Tarrasch, and with this trap it is showing us that the classical and old Steinitz variation is really not such a good one. So for this reason, chess masters are choosing to play the modern Tarrasch defense with a6 first, and when white plays bishop to a4, then black is choosing with d6 to play the Tarrasch defense. So thank you very much, and I hope to see you in